Imposter syndrome is the one I hear the most, together with burnout, probably. You can have a goal. If you don't believe in it, you're never going to get there. Even people at the highest level, CEOs, VPs, everybody has imposter syndrome. I actually have my own LinkedIn coach I worked with, and she is an imposter syndrome coach, now a business coach. And she has imposter syndrome. Like, I am a career coach, and I need a career coach right now. Do you know what I mean?
Hello, friends, and welcome to a new episode of Merging Minds, the podcast that is brought to you as every week or almost every week by BureauWorks, the AI-powered TMS. Today, as in every episode, I am thrilled and happy to be bringing you a new localization human story. Sometimes I invite some of my friends, sometimes I invite people that I know less. But today, I'm inviting a close one, somebody that is going through a lot of stuff, somebody that is going through a lot of change, millennial stuff, right? And actually, he's building his business right now. Without further ado, drum roll. A big FC Bayern fan, Mr. Mario Plusny. Hi, Marito.
Hello, Javi. How are you? Servus.
Finally in the interview, brother, in the podcast.
Love it. I love it. Thanks for having me on. Thanks for the retro shirt, the FC Bayern retro shirt.
This was a tribute to you. You know that I can.
And I'm wearing my Greece. I'm wearing my Greece like sailing shirt for you to represent. So
this
yeah.
This is not a fake background. I'm actually recording this podcast from Greece, not on holidays, but working from here as I try to do every summer. So
beautiful.
Yeah, bro, I'm happy to have you here. How have you been?
Thank you. Good. Enjoying a little bit of sunshine in Ireland, believe it or not. Yeah. We've had a great early summer. May, June has been incredible. So just settling into our life in the countryside. Yeah, things are going well. Thanks for having me.
Nice. No, it's a pleasure, man. Like I'm always trying to, as I said, like bring people that are trying to do things different or have a beautiful story to share. And you have one, right? Like for the listeners, I've known Mario, I think it's since 2019. We met at one of the localization community events, Lock Lunch. By then you were working in a British English company. What was the name? I forgot the name. Oh God.
Yeah, it was called Memrise, a startup in London. That's where we met. It was a Lock Lunch in London 2018, I think it was.
I think it's 19, bro. We have that fight. Like, is it 18, 19?
18 or 19. One of those.
Yeah. And then we clicked. Dude, I remember little after the pandemic came. I think it was 19 because little after the pandemic came. Yeah. And then I remember you and I having conversations all the time, every day, on the phone, the problems, things that are going on. I wanted to change my job. I wanted to do this and that, millennial stuff, instability-related stuff, right?
For sure. Yeah, that's been a journey for both of us, for sure.
Yes, indeed. So, like, I know you very well. You're a close friend of mine. But for those who are listening, they might not know you as much as I do. You've actually had a beautiful, pretty intense, large, quote, if 10 years is large, localization career. You've recently quit your job and you started a consulting business, a coaching business, so to say. But before we get into that matter, that's what you're doing right now. Like, who the hell is Mario Plusny? Where are you from, mate?
Yeah, that's a good question. And it's a little bit of soul searching and a little bit of, searching my origin still. But yeah, I grew up in Germany. People look at my name. There's an Italian name, a Polish name. People can't quite. Then I open my mouth. It comes out some sort of English with a German accent. Is it a different accent? So it's always a little bit confusing to people. I grew up on the Swiss and Austrian border, Lake Constance, Bodensee area for German speakers here. And I went to University of Constance by the Swiss border. Beautiful area, sailing, skiing in the winters, the mountains, the lake. I mean, just a gorgeous area. That's where I grew up.
Your area is one of the most beautiful places on earth. Like
it is a good place.
I recently drove through it, obviously last year.
Yeah.
Incredible, bro. And are you one of those that just stumbled upon the localization industry? Did you learn some localization? How was it, bro? How was it?
I mean, look, I was always fascinated by languages. That's tell me about you. It's like something with languages, right? So my brother was doing linguistics, and I didn't know what that meant. I just knew I was good at it. In school, I was terrible at maths, terrible at sciences, chemistry, physics. I just couldn't wrap my head around it. And my parents thought he's not going to even sit still, all through the first primary school and then into, believe it or not, I had the best grades of everybody going into the secondary part of gymnasium in Germany. And I picked one where it was all about languages. You could start with French in 5th grade. So I was only 11, 12. And I knew I was going to be good at it. I wanted to start with French. That's how I picked my school. And I did French for a couple of years starting and then English. And I did my linguistics degree, and it was very much academic, kind of like learning new things, studying vowels, studying syntactic trees, all this crazy stuff. And, what do you do with that? Everybody laughing at you. How are you going to get a job with that? And I was looking for a job, finished my master's in 2016. I thought maybe teaching. Everybody, my mom telling me, you're going to be a great teacher, you should be a teacher. And I interviewed with EF, a company that does kind of language education abroad, and an English teacher in Munich. Believe it or not, I had an interview to go to Munich, become a German or there's an English teacher for people studying there. And that didn't work out. I interviewed with the University of Zurich to do more of that academic. A PhD, I was one of two candidates, didn't get that. And then found Memrise, a startup all about language learning. So I was able to use that background of languages, linguistics. And after a couple of years there, I was working with Sonia. Shout out to one of my early mentors there. She was at Disney. She had done localization for years. She was sort of helping me to grow into that. And yeah, like you say, I fell into it by accident. I believed something that, you can combine your love for languages with the tech side, with the project management side. And that was 2017. So
the traveling,
2017.
The international atmosphere, you're always in, like the people from here, people from there, which is beautiful, right? That kind of life we're allowed and we're able to do, no?
I'm just saying that startup atmosphere in London, 2016, 17 was amazing. It was young graduates, young people coming to London for their first job or second job and working at a startup, just working on your passion and then going out for pints in East London afterwards and hosting these international dinners, access to all of this amazing food in London, as you say, the language, the culture, the international vibe, it was amazing. So
if I ask you now and we jump back in time and we rewind to 22-year-old Mario and you ask him, Marito, what does success look like now? Marito, because you were a kid back then.
Marito, little Mario, exactly. Yeah, it's an interesting one, and I have this reflection now. We're getting a bit older, mid-late 30s, and success now would be different even to 2 or 3 years ago. I would say that I was still chasing some sort of career. Even at Memrise, I was always about how can I make more money. I mean, I was a coordinator role. How can I get a more senior role? I wanted my title to be this fancy thing, whatever, log PM, senior PM, head of, all of that. I was chasing that. That was success for me, defined by the job title and how much money I made. Now I would tell you very, very differently. I mean, a simple life success for me is to be healthy, first of all, to have a roof over your head, to have enough money in the bank that you can live your life and be happy. It's the threshold is what, $70,000, $80,000 is the world index of happiness. Above that, it doesn't make a difference if you make 1 million or 2 million or 5 million, So
I'd rather cry in my Ferrari than in my than my Fiat 500.
There you go. I and it sounds cliche, but I did really have that realization that success looks like you can somehow be free, as in I can determine how I spend my days. I get to walk my dog, the simple cliche things. Be healthy, go for a walk, spend time with my wife to be, see my friends and family, and spend time outdoors. And that is what success and happiness looks like for me now. Right. And helping people, like that's a big one.
That's a good one. That's one something that we have in common, right? Helping, connecting, etc. Right?
For sure.
Hey, so it's interesting because most of us millennials, we're millennials from the generation the last generation, the generation that was there. Oh, fuck.
Yeah.
I hate that stuff, right? And but for you're in your mid 30s, and for a guy in the mid 30s, you've worked in an interesting number of tech companies, Memrise. You've worked at Tenable, you've worked at Twitter. I remember the Twitter experience, bro. Personio. How do you break into those high-profile companies or roles? How do you do that?
Yeah, look, I think with our industry being quite small and niche, there is only so and so many roles. That's a problem I'm seeing now. So you have to stand out somehow. And it was easier when I did it compared to what I'm seeing right now in the market. So I don't know that there is a big, massive secret other than, be ambitious, build a really good CV in terms of keeping track of your wins. They call about, talk about your wins and impact. But that's what these tech companies want to see. It's about moving fast, seeing impact, seeing numbers. Believe it or not, it's all about that. you probably know, working at a fast-paced tech company yourself. You have to be able to tell your story. And I was always quite good at that. I was always reflecting on these things, reading about career blogs. I remember The Muse was a website I was going almost daily. How do you interview well? How do you build your CV well? How do you tell your story? I mean, your elevator pitch. You know, if I
Yes.
ask you, Javi, what do you do? It's literally from all of your experience with the social selling, the storytelling. People love a good story, and people will listen to your story. And if you can present that in a meaningful, coherent way,
Yeah.
you're gonna stand out. And also, it is about connection. Again, I don't have to tell you about networking. That's how I
Yeah.
got most of my jobs, except for Twitter. Twitter, I don't want to say I was lucky, but I applied. They saw my CV, I stood out, and I interviewed well, and I got the role. But I think that
Yeah.
wouldn't work in today's in nowadays market. That was 3-4 years ago. I mean, nowadays, if you apply to Meta, Google, whatever those companies, you have to be lucky. You have to either know somebody, get a foot in the door, referrals. It is really, really tough right now. But to me, once you have those big players on your CV, of course you're gonna stand out.
Mhm.
That helps, right? So that's what I would say helped me, to just build good experience, add it to my CV, and then interview well and be yourself, be authentic, and just say, here's what I've done, here's what I haven't done.
Like I still believe there's a lot of tech companies, or most of the companies, I don't know if most or not, I've just worked with a couple of them in our industry, right, who still have that human heart, who still have that that not only numbers driven, which, I mean, of course it's numbers driven, we're here for the profit, right? But I know companies, and I am happy to say that here at BureauWorks it's people first. And I still believe that. Am I a dreamer?
I don't think so. I think, and a lot of companies put that on their page, values page, about us. We care about the human. And then you go under the hood, and I'm not saying, naming any company where it might not be like that. I'm saying that on the surface level, on paper, people want to see the impact. And then if you interview, hopefully there is a cultural fit, and you hopefully hire. And everybody says it's more important that you're a decent human who gets along with our team, and we can teach you XY technical skills. And I don't know if it's true. I think in my experience, I've seen so and so. I think it depends on my last company, HR company, Personio. It was like that. It was about the people. Twitter, it was also about that before. Obviously, Elon Musk came in and things changed for the worse. But it was a really, really close-knit team. Everybody who had worked at Twitter and several other tech companies in Dublin said Twitter was the best one. And David, Tara, people I work with were there 7, 8, 9 years. That shows you that they're building a culture based on that, the human condition, the human heart, what you were saying. So I do think it's true. And I do think if you build teams like that, you're going to have more success. You're going to build for the future rather than, and I've seen it. People that I know from the industry where they hire fast and they fire fast because, on paper, we have this great person, we get him in, great technical skills, and the fit wasn't there, the cultural fit. And then, you go your separate ways even before probation is over. Because it is about the human connection.
So the companies, the big names, the titles, they don't give you what you expected, right? It's more the culture. It's more the fitting. I guess the friendship connections you can make there if you connect with your supervisor or your boss or colleague, whatever.
For sure. I think also the role, the day-to-day role, what are your tasks that you need to do? And, the way that I have found my localization was increasingly more technical and more complex, not an easy job whatsoever. You're an all-rounder. You have to do a bit of everything. And you don't get to work with humans or the human condition, the what's underneath, the values, the psychological conversations. You don't really, there is really no space and time for that because tech and all of that moves fast, as you know.
I know you're building now your own coaching company, your own coaching career.
Yes, indeed.
Coaching people to go and find their place. Right now, I guess it's in the localization industry, but I'm sure when this is in the future, you will expand. But I think where you are now comes from your journey, from your story, from what you've lived, right? And when was the moment when you said, like, I'm sick and tired of that stuff. I'm going out and I'm going to do this. The titles don't make me feel full. The money is okay, but when was that moment?
Yeah, it's probably over the last few years, accumulation of things. As you say, millennials, life throws things at you. And, I don't want to say that I had it particularly more difficult than others, but, in my case, there were a few major life events happening and are still happening. where I was laid off from Twitter, that sort of started a process of reflecting deeper, because I was always feeling localization is great, it fits my skill set, but I'm not necessarily 100% fulfilled because I wasn't doing the teaching, coaching, mentoring, consulting, helping people, teaching them something. I wasn't doing that so much. It was more about the results, the translations in and out, operations, cost, budgets, all of that. So when I got laid off from Twitter, I had time to reflect, and I was actually forced to really reflect and say, what do I do? And I found another localization role, and I was kind of going, which way am I going? It was too early because I had only started my coaching certification, my diploma that I got with a higher education institution, Kingstown College. So I was doing that. I went to Personio. I was able to at least match that better to what I fit, because Twitter was a massive company and you were just a cogwheel. Whereas with Personio, I was excited at first to build something. I was not one of so many. I was one of the key players in the team, building the team, helping to hire and shape something. So it was a great fit, and it was all about the people, the HR, actually helping people, helping employees with that. So I think then I spent 2 years there, and recently I just got caught up in the pace and the complexity and just not fitting that fast pace, and it got really overwhelming. So I did have some mental health issues in February, March, and I just thought if I don't pull the plug and look after myself, I'm just gonna let's say burn out. And so I took some time off work. I then resigned. There were some things of like, is this a good fit on both sides, right? So they maybe wanted something different. I needed something different. So I resigned. I handed in my notice to say, I want to reflect and I want to build something different, and also help people to reflect the same way, because that's what coaching is sitting like this and giving people time and space to think and help them figure out, where do I want to go next? And I don't know that I said, this is for me and I'll leave it behind forever, but I needed a moment of peace and calm and reflect. And so the business is very young, as in I only registered the business here in Ireland a couple of weeks ago. And it was actually, I want to give a shout out to Paul, our friend Paul Barlow, who put me in touch with somebody, his brother, who helped me with setting this up, because it is not easy, the paperwork, the implications. Can I actually do this? Can I actually register my business and make money with this coaching thing? And then in June,
for those watching out there, like Mario is mentioning it again, the importance of the human connections within our localization industry, right?
Exactly.
So you just mentioned our common friend Paul. I don't know, for some reason I was talking about him here this morning as well.
Right.
My partner. I don't know.
There you go.
It's important in our industry, and bro, you get caught in lots of conversations when people get laid off, and I'm happy to be connecting people as much as I can. And every week somebody writes to me, it's like, hey, I need a job. What can I do? Or I'm trying to do these things. Like, what is your network? And I'm like, I have a network, right? And people get stuck. And I always tell them, hey, your next goal as a professional is to be able to get a job without sending a CV, right? And that's where in an industry like ours, it's a community. And we've mentioned this in the past. And please, if you're watching this, here's another example of another professional in the localization industry who, thanks to the great connections he's been doing, because, bro, you started doing these connections. I remember we were talking about this during the pandemic. Like, they still don't know me that much. It's like, dude, do it. And look at you now. I'm happy.
Thank you.
It's the result of things working when you network, when you're a good professional, when you do things okay, right? Things happen this way, right? So,
as you know, it's helping. It's giving and taking, and I always say that again. It sounds cliche. I always try to give as much, if not more, than you take, and life finds a way. Karma comes around, and if you're helping others, they will help you. It's as easy as that.
Yes, and I know you've also been through, like, in all this process of changing, in all these waves that came into your professional life, you've also suffered the loss of your dad. I know, I was there, and that, I mean, like we are, I'm in my early 40s, you're in your late 30s, and it always looks like, bro, like death is something that is really far away, right? Still, and that although you see your closest ones getting older, it's never gonna happen, and it happens, and it happened at the same time when all these professional, let's say, bad moments came to you, right?
For sure.
But how I've known as well about your personal breakdown and all that stuff, and all the things. Like, when did you realize, hey, I'm not good? And when did you realize I'm going to get some help? And how did you get out of it? Because I think your story can help inspire other friends that listen to.
Thank you, man. Yeah, I appreciate that. I mean, look, it was all close to together, right? So September 2022, my dad passed away, and then in November is what 6, 7 weeks after, I got the email. You roll a Twitter, and I was like, oh my God, there's two big things happening in my life. And also, we were trying to, in my personal life with my fiance Danielle, we were trying to build our life in your 30s, as you do, trying to make enough money. There's a housing crisis, there's wars, there is political unrest, there's all these things. All of us are going through that. But here in Dublin, in Ireland, there is, on top of that, young people who make good money in tech. I'm talking Google, I'm talking Twitter, and not poor, trying to buy a house, and it's impossible, right? So we were also going through that. And then I was there, I had no job, I had a little bit of money saved up. The severance was pretty terrible, but I tried to rebuild my life from there and reflect, and also be honest and vulnerable and open. And I don't mean this to brag or say, look at me. I'm saying I got so many messages. So many messages, friends, clients, future colleagues who reached out and said, what you share about loss, your dad grieving, I can really resonate. I lost my dad too. I mean, I probably have 50, hundreds of messages like that, where it's like, I don't necessarily need coaching, or I don't have a job for you, but I just wanted to ping you and say, I lost my mom, I lost my dad last year. I mean, I have conversations like this where somebody that I'm now close with, we both cried on a call to just say, that is so tough. And even though we know it was coming, and or maybe your parent, we are going to see your parents die. That is the way of life, and it is never easy.
Yeah.
And you think it will be in the of course. And I have conversations where 10 years ago in my 20s, it was like, who got the drunkest last night, right? And now we have conversations of our aging parents, and it's really tough to see.
Yes,
it's part of life. And in my case, my dad had his first stroke. I was 19, so my adult life, it was like that. So you had time to prepare in a way, and then when it happened, I was in a meeting in Twitter, actually. I was in a meeting room, and you kind of question life then. Oh, I was working, and could I have spent more time with him? And there's a bit of guilt, and my mom called me, and it's that terrible moment for one parent to tell the child, you're always going to be mom's little son, and now I have to tell him your dad passed away. So my dad is with me, obviously, and I'm coming out of it a little bit stronger, as you say. But yeah, it is tough, and I'm going through it still. You're grieving. That never ends, I don't think. But I was able to turn that into a bit of that resilience that I help people with. I don't mean this to look at me, what I've done, but if I can turn it around, anybody can. If I can rebuild their life from that loss, and these moments of loss, and we call them the lows, are actually turns out to be the biggest growth opportunities.
No, I get it. And I see you doing this, and like one of the things I always talk about here is also overcoming difficulties, and also like entrepreneurship and starting a business. And it's like, hey, like, because I'm always saying, like, I'm positively jealous of those people who just like, hey, wake up one day, it's like, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to start my own business, and they do it, and they thrive, right? And I mean, they thrive at some point in the future. Sure. Normally, if you have like the $20 million idea that is going to work up like this in a couple of weeks, but most of the business fail, or most of the business take years to thrive. Right?
Of course, look, that's what I want to highlight. It wasn't the case of like, I have this well thought out idea and business plan, and I'm going to replace my tech salary within a month or two. That's not going to happen. I know that. I also want it to be sustainable. I want to build it in a smart way, efficient way. Let's call it the German way, not take that many crazy risks and just quit my job, move to Bali and do that thing. That wasn't my plan. And it doesn't, and it actually doesn't fit with where I am in my life with a mortgage. We bought a house in October. We have our wedding this October. Then we got a foster dog. Like, life is throwing a lot of stuff at me, and I'm doing them all at the same time. So I'm aware to take my time and build a business slowly, and maybe go back and take another job, do a consulting thing, do a part-time job, whatever it takes. But the eyes are on the prize in terms of whenever I've probably helped over 30 people with the coaching, career coaching, clarity coaching. And these people are thriving. And it doesn't mean they have their dream job in 2 months, but it means they know a bit more about themselves, and they have more confidence, and they learn from me that you can fall down, as you say, and you get back up, and you reflect on your highs and lows, and you rebuild something from there with clarity and with more focus. Because if that Twitter layoff and my dad's death hadn't happened to me that time, I probably would still be in a tech company like that without really thinking about it. I'm being just a cogwheel, and I'm not saying corporate is bad. It can be for some people, but for me, I've just realized my potential is for something different, for something bigger.
I want to ask you now about your coaching, because it sounds super interesting what you're doing, right? Like, you're consulting now and helping people develop their careers. Like, mostly you're working with let's say, mid-career professionals, right? People who are about our age, who are like, I'm tired of what I'm doing, what am I going to do next? It looks like there's nothing outside of localization. It looks like there's nothing about creating a business. So when you come across one of these people or these cases, let's go away, what is the most common pattern you see in mid-career professionals in the industry?
Yeah, you touched on that, right? As people our age, again, mid-career, but they range from 25 to 55. So I don't want to put an age group on it, but it's mostly people who they have a lot of things in common. They care, they're ambitious, they're empathetic. They want to do something meaningful, not just another job, not just the fast pace. Being undervalued is a big one. People don't want to get underpaid. They want to get a promotion, but without maybe necessarily the cost of burnout and stress and anxiety. So it is to really reflect together on what it is that I can do best. And everyone says just go after your passion. I don't agree with that, because your passion doesn't put money in the bank. So it needs to be also a fit with your skills. What are you good at? And when they come together, there might be an overlap of things you can do in or outside of localization. So
and when a professional is like is in that moment of development or career life, whatever, what is like a common pattern you see in them? Like, oh my God, they have a burnout, they have a, I don't know, you tell us.
I think there has to be, and this is the ironic thing, I don't think in order to benefit from coaching, personal development, mentoring, you need to have some sort of breakdown. I think it's always helpful for anybody. I try to do courses, books, mentors, coaches, Paul, we mentioned him. You mentioned Eva before. We mentioned people I look up to, even someone like you. We exchange and do all the time. So this is always helpful. But for coaching to be some sort of trigger, right? You want to go and say, I now have an opportunity. I see something is not working. That can be a burnout. It can be a panic attack. In my case, it was a bit of everything, anxiety, a loss where you deeply reflect on life. Life is short. So I want to do something meaningful. For the coaching to be something that I want to actively, there has to be a pain. Otherwise, why would you go and invest in a professional to help you with a problem that you might not overcome yourself? So that's the common thing I'm seeing, is people who are either burned out, they lost their job. Like a layoff is a common thing. Unfortunately, there is so many layoffs, as we know. A loss of a parent, a loved one, just reflecting, I'm not happy. You wake up one day and you're just not happy, and your body is actively resisting whatever is happening. So there is that, let's call it the turning point, the trigger point. So
do you think those professionals or those people, those friends that you are helping are stuck because of the system or because of their own fear?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, everybody is different, right? You can't generalize and say we're all stuck because, but there is certainly a shift that we're seeing. And I told you we're having this article come out in the fall, and with another industry friend, the publication and magazine dealing with that topic of how is the fast pace? How is, I hate to say AI again, everywhere we look is AI, but I mean, things are even moving faster. People who were doing the human craft, let's say translation, transcreation, are being replaced, or at least some parts are just overhauled, and it accelerates. And now C-level, in my case, they want to see results yesterday, and it's just another thing. I feel that if you think about the glass, right, and the glass is here and it's overflowing, and there's an extra thing that's pouring in, and our nervous system is just overwhelmed. And we're talking about the political situation, wars, everything. We're going through a lot as a society right now, not just people our age, everybody. And then you add to that job insecurity, job stability is not so much given anymore. It's just a lot. So I think
you think that's a millennial thing, because probably we grew up with our parents having jobs for 17 years or 20 years, something like this, and we didn't. If you last for 4 years in a company, it's like, holy smokes, it's incredible. Right? Like few of us, maybe more classical. I don't know. I'm thinking of more like Spanish classical society where you work. That happens, right? But if you're in the fast-paced industry like tech, people tend to work in some place for 3-4 years, and then 5. That's incredible, and then, right?
So that you touched on something good. That is maybe the dream that we were sold, right? Or the dream that we believe in. You stay somewhere, you settle down. That is not what it is for us millennials anymore. And you hear about job jumping, job crafting. A lot of people, they just create their own role. There might not be a role for you and your talents. So that's why entrepreneurship comes in. You build your own thing. And it's not easy.
But sell an idea to a company that wants to buy it as well. Like I've been sort of like selling, quote unquote, like, hey, I can do social selling. I can do this kind of marketing. I can do this kind of thing, right? And I mean, there's going to be an audience. Probably Twitter won't buy this, but in an industry, in a space like ours, few people are doing different stuff. Sorry to have stopped you there, mate.
No, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think just to finish the thought on the system, is it the system, is it us? I think it's a mix of both. I think you take an individual into that environment, and that is when it happens. Somebody who has this ambition, who has a dream to build something meaningful, be fulfilled, and you can't have it all. That's the other thing. We're told you can have it all, right? The dream, let's call it the American dream, whatever dream. And you're saying, am I a dreamer? I think I am like that, but there is a reality of, even for me, I would love to just coach a few hours a day and then sit in the sun and drink coffee and beer all day. Unfortunately, there is the reality of having to, you need to pay your bills. So sometimes you need to find a job just for the sake of it. And that's the other thing where maybe I'm a dreamer in that the job cannot always be fulfilling. Sometimes you have to, spend hours doing manual annoying tasks, and that's part of the job too. But at least if you have never paused to reflect, you might be on a path that isn't your own. So I think, it's a mix.
And what do you think that some of us or high achieving millennials, or some of us or whatever, are still not yet in leadership roles? Because I don't know if this is like biased, but I think back 40 years ago, I could see people that were our age, 30 years, like my parents or whatever. They could have more of leadership roles or be more established, and I have a feeling that we millennials are entering that, but at the late stage. Was there like a glass ceiling? What do you think? Like, what happened?
That's interesting. Because I always thought that that's what I wanted, is the leadership role, leading a team, with direct reports, the big corporate dream or whatever, the startup, whatever it is. And I was asking myself the question. And you compare yourself to others all the time. As a human, that's human nature. So I do it too. People younger than me, I mean, in their late 20s, early 30s, are VPs sometimes, and you go, how is this even possible when I've had a good career? But then I'm going, you just have to reflect on what you want. It's not for me, because what we don't see is what's underneath, and how many hours do they work, and do they have a family life? I mean, they're probably not going to be able to freely travel to Greece. Next week you're going to be somewhere else. If you have that settled life, the stable life, that isn't for you, right? And so everybody has their own version of that happiness. That's what they want. The glass ceiling, I don't know. I think there's a lot of opportunity. There's a lot of luck that people don't see. Is how did you get to this company? Well, or to this level? And a lot of people stay 5-10 years. It still happens. And if it's a small company, I mean, from project manager to VP, that goes quite quickly. Whereas the bigger companies, you have years to go through. And actually, some people either make a change before they reach that, they get bored, they change their mind. In my case, I actually never stayed anywhere long enough to go into a head of Logan VP. And now that I'm reflecting on it, it's not what I want. So I'm not mad that other people are doing that. They have the title, because
it's a career. Like, this is, I see what you're coming from. And I'm now that I'm thinking of it, there's a lot of like factors that help into that. Like, for example, like you mentioned luck. I don't believe in luck. Like, it's like things happen for a reason, right? I mean, I believe in luck in some occasions, like a football game or whatever that was lucky. But at the end, if you think of it, luck, it's a combination of opportunities, right?
Sure.
And one of the things that I've always quote unquote criticized is like people like that are in our career or development stage, and they like, hey, I do not sell. I cannot sell. And it's like, and I'm not talking about selling a certain product or whatever, selling internally, managing up, like being able to position themselves as a valuable asset. Might this be because we're living in a constant imposter syndrome thing? Is it a people thing that I'm not good for this? Is that blocking you from going up in your career?
For sure. Yeah. Again, imposter syndrome is the one I hear the most, together with burnout, probably. Those are the two that people come to me. And, confidence is something that I do touch on in my coaching and the program that I work with people on. Is clarity is one thing. Well, your goal, your clarity, your confidence, right? Because if you can have a goal, if you don't believe in it, you're never going to get there. I like your point about luck. I do think there is, I don't want to call it like opportunity. Some people are given more and better opportunities than others, but also people who come from nowhere with no luck and no opportunity make their own path. There is a little bit of
somebody in Kenya with a laptop can build a multi-million-dollar business. That's what it is. So
There you go. So I do think, again, is it a generational thing? Is it a millennial thing? Is it the way our parents, raised us? In my case, when you hit the real world, the tough world, then, the first time you need that resilience, and you were sort of shielded. And I don't mean this in a bad thing. Like, I had a great childhood. I was protected. I was given everything to nurture. But then once life hit, like, reality hits. I don't know how to overcome these issues. I don't know how to believe in myself. If you're constantly being told you're doing this really well, you don't need that internal validation. It has to come from the inside. So that confidence you touch on, imposter syndrome, even people at the highest level, CEOs, VPs, everybody has imposter syndrome. I actually have my own LinkedIn coach I worked with, and she is an imposter syndrome coach, now a business coach. And she has imposter syndrome. Like, I am a career coach, and I need a career coach right now. Do you know what I mean? So this is the point. So
it's interesting to mention this because it's like I'm working in psychology as well, and I started like almost 2 years ago a therapy methodology that is called the SCIM methodology, right? Which goes to the origins of the pain. It explains you why you act like this, why you're doing these things, etc., etc., etc. And precisely, the psychologist says, like, I have also my schemas. I know when they turn up, but I'm here to coach you and tell you, like, realize that you're going through one of those, right? And it's hard. It's hard in moments of indecision, in moments of change, and in moments of anxiety, as you mentioned. It's difficult, right? And
it is.
I guess this might be first world problems, of course, but it's the reality we're living in, right?
Yeah, it is. It is, but it's all relative. I mean, we call it a first world problem, but your reality is your reality, and how you feel is valid.
Yes, indeed. I thought we were going to do 25, 30 minutes, but we're already above the hour. I could be talking to you, mate, here for hours, and we solve the problems of the world and all the millennial shit that we're going through. But I have I recently started a closing couple questions that I call the rapid fire, right?
Love it.
So I'm going to ask you, I hope you know how to answer, bro. Yeah? Okay, don't
fire away. Go for it.
Yeah, okay. So are you an early morning or a late night person?
Early morning.
Okay, email or voice note?
Email.
Leadership born or made?
Say again, leadership?
Leadership both born or made?
Made.
Made. A book that changed how you think?
A book that changed how I think. I'm going to go The Hobbit, one of my favorite books ever. All about
introvert or extrovert?
I would say extrovert still, yeah.
What is your superpower?
My superpower is my empathy and my resilience.
Oh, yes, I love that one. Bro, thank you so much for being here. And to all of you watching, thanks for another episode thanks for coming and following us in another episode of Merging Minds. Until the next time, peace and love.
Thanks,
cheers, brother.
See you.
Thanks so much.
Bye, everybody.
Love
you too.